Hi, this video is on how to make quizzes and tests using your ExamView test bank that may have come with your textbook. I am currently in Mr. Wendell's computer class, and you can see I'm by the way over here under question bank and categories. He's got a ton of questions here. These are all imported directly from ExamView, and it's really easy to do. Basically, you just on this side, you just hit import, pick that it's in, for instance, a Blackboard setting that you use, drop the file and hit import, and you end up with all of the questions there in all these categories. So once you're done, for instance, he's got all these questions already set up in his chapter 2 category, and over here on the left hand side, these are essay questions. This is a matching question. These are all multiple choice questions down to here, which are fill in the blank questions. And then these are the dots, mean they're true false questions. So right now, if he wanted to make the exact same test that he had for chapter 2 that he's handing out to students, he could turn that into a digital one on Moodle really easily. So the way he would do that would be to go down to the end of that section, and I'm going to go ahead and turn editing on, and go down to the end of that section and add an activity, and he would add a quiz, and then he could add chapter 2 exam. And then he could put in here in the description, which is not required because the only thing that are required are the ones with the red asterisks. The parameters for this particular quiz, it's timed at 45 minutes, it's open book, whatever. And then I'm going to hit expand all here to show you everything. I don't normally put an open the quiz, or I'm sorry, I don't usually put a close the quiz, but I would say if you click here, it'll be on the student's calendar, and I can click there and say, hey, this is a test that I'm going to give you next Thursday, and I open it up at the beginning of the day, so that it'll work at the beginning of the day on Thursday, and now every student will have that test on their calendar, realizing that some might be orange and some might be brown. So I open it up on the first brown day or the first day a student would take it. I can pick what category it is. So it's third quarter. So you might throw it in the third quarter category. Default on tests is 1, although if it's formative assessment, which we'll talk about next, you might want to make it unlimited. I'll go ahead and leave it at 1. I'm going to leave all these settings just the way they are. If you want students to only take it at trail, you put in 10.66 in there, and that is the national trail beginning of all of our addresses. So now they can't take this test at home. And because I have more than one block of hardware, make a password. You could put in any password you want and always go and check it later to see what the password is. And now I have to give the password to the students in order for them to take it. I'm done. I hit save and display now, and the test is set up, but it automatically comes here and says, hey, there's no questions. You need to add some questions to this quiz. So now I'm going to go over here to edit quiz, and here's where I can add questions. So I'm going to go ahead and say shuffle, which means that every student sitting next to each other gets the questions in a different order. And I'm going to say what the grade is worth. If it's a test, maybe it's worth 100 points. I don't know how you grade in your classroom, but that's basically the process, however many points you want them to get. And then I just hit add from the question bank, and I would pick, since we're in chapter 2, I'm going to pick chapter 2. And now I see all the chapter 2 questions available to me. Now, it says what the beginning of the question is. So if you already have a paper test that you want to make this match, if you hit the question right there, now they're alphabetical, and you can easily go through and say, hey, that was a question, that was a question. You can pick all the questions that you want to be on this test and make it completely match the paper test that you're used to giving for your students, however many questions that is, and you hit add selected questions to the quiz. And now it's added all of those. I've only got 12 right now. Questions. The next thing, and honestly the last thing you have to do when you're using an ExamView test bank or any other test bank that came with your textbook, is to assign how many points. Now by default they're all worth the same, but maybe and I make true false only worth 1 point, but I make multiple choice worth 2, so they weigh twice as much because they're obviously a harder question and they give me more data than a true false does. And honestly, I don't have this many true false questions in the first place. But so you would go through and say the weight of the question over here, and you have to hit enter. So if I was to say, hey, these multiple choice ones are worth double as a true false, I hit the pencil, I put in the weight, it's a relative weight, and then I have to hit enter for it to count. And now it's going to weigh all these so that there's 15 points. So if I went and said this was worth 100, now it's going to basically divide those 15 points out of 100 and say each one of these is worth exactly whatever that works out to be. So you would go through, you can always go and add later. I can go and say, hey, I want to add a couple more questions from the question bank. That was in all of them. I can go through chapter 2 again. I can go and pick whatever questions. And if I don't know what it is, I can hit this little pop-up button here and, oh, this is the question, and fill with correct answer. Is that the right answer? Select one. To select text. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted. Okay. You can also, if you want to, you can also edit these questions. You can't do it from here from the add screen, but you can edit the questions later at any time over here with this button and change the example. If you want to, you can change the font, you can change the any way you want to. And you can change what the answer is. Not really a factor on this true false question, but let's say this multiple choice question right here is something in a new Word document, the title displays and it says what the answers are. New, document 1, that's the answer, book 1, none, none. If you wanted to, there has to be one that's worth 100%. But if you said, yeah, you know what, this one, it's not right, but it's close, you could make some of them worth partial credit as well if you wanted to go and edit those as well. The other thing you can do is in the question bank, if I went to the question bank, and I'm going to go over here to this question bank real fast, and I went to the questions in the question bank, I can duplicate these as well. So I'm like, you know what? I want to make another question like that asks something different. If you hit duplicate, it adds the word copy at the end, and then I can go and change that one and make a new question and put new answer options down here at the bottom. It's a nice way of expanding your question bank most easily by doing that. In fact, I'm going to find that copy because I don't want that to be on there. What did I do with it? Just left line. I must not have saved it. So I guess that's good. So that's basically it. It's really, really easy. Now, when you give this test now, it just shows up here on chapter 2 at the bottom of chapter 2 in Mr. Wendell's course, and I'm going to delete it. Students click it and come in. It'll say any input they have. It's not going to be available until that date and time that I said is passed. So it says the quiz is not available until Thursday, January 27th at 7:30 a.m. Later on, as the teacher, I can go and see the results, and I can see any of the statistics on this, what questions students miss the most, which ones are the problem areas, what do I need to reteach, kind of thing. But the grades are done automatically, and they enter my grade book as soon as a student hits enter in there. So that makes it really easy, especially if you've got ExamView database to set up those questions. It's also possible, because he's got maybe a newer version of Word than this database came up with, that I might want to change some of those questions. So I'm going to preview, which is what I hit there, and I always preview my tests. So as I'm going through here, I can just go through and look at it just like a student does and see if all the questions are what I want. And if I'm like, oh, you know what, this changed. Let me see if there's one. Let's say this changed to the newest version of Word. I can just hit edit question. I can fix the question right here, hit save, and now it's changed on every single occurrence of that question in my entire course, and it makes it really, really nice to be able to update stuff just like that. The other thing I can do, if I've got IEP students that normally would leave my classroom maybe because they're having questions read to them, I can add the reading of the questions into the question itself. So I could go to edit question here, and right here where I've got the question, I can hit the down arrow, and then I can hit the record button. And it gives me the chance to start recording. I'm going to move it down here so I can read the question. Which part of the Word window shows the paper size? And it says, hey, is that what you wanted? You can listen to it. Which part of the Word window shows the paper size? And if that's what I wanted, I can just hit attach recording. I'm going to hit an enter here. And now the students see the question and can hit that button and have the question read to them as well. I'm going to delete that because I'm not going to add my voice to his test bank, but it makes it really, really nice so students don't have to have anybody go out of class and read to them. I'm going, well, you know what, I'm just going to cancel the bottom so I don't save that change to his test bank. That's it as far as making your paper exam view tests into online Moodle tests. You don't have to have version 1, version 2. They all get different randomized versions. I will say one of the things that I do in my class, I'm going to go down here. If I want to give a different version of this test to my IEP students than I give to my regular students and maybe reduce the number of questions, this is one of the things that I can do. And I know several teachers do this. I'm going to go and I'm going to duplicate it. And now I've got another copy of that exam. Right now, all the students would see that. I'm going to go and delete the word copy because I don't want students to know there are different versions. And then I'm going to go back here in the settings and I'm going to go down to restrict access. So this allows me to restrict things from being seen. So I'm going to hit add a restriction and I'm going to click group, and we're going to see all the groups that are available in here. One of them is NT IEP. So that's IEP students. So on this one, I'm going to say students must not be the IEP students. And I'm going to click that, meaning that if they're not, it's hidden. And I'm going to hit save and display. And I'm going to go ahead and go back here. And now down here at the bottom, it says this exam is for people not in IEP. And then I'm going to hit edit settings here. And I'm going to hit restrictions down here again. And I'm going to do the same thing and say group IEP. And this one says must be an IEP. I'm going to save and return to course. So now I've got automatically differentiating thing that this one, and they can't see this by the way, only the teacher can. So this one is for students that aren't on an IEP, and this one is for students that are on an IEP. And now I can take this one, I'm going to go back into editing, and I'm going to edit the quiz, and I'm going to say, you know what, on this one, they're going to have less questions, so I'm going to delete several, and I delete basically 30 to 40% of my questions for students on IEPs. And so now both sets of students see the same thing. Down here when they come in, if they're on an IEP, they're going to see this one. If they're not, they're going to see this one. The difference is nothing as far as what they see, but when the students not on an IEP click on this, they get whatever it was, 15 questions, but the students who click on this one only get 8. And that's a way to give those students on IEP that say they have more time, basically more time. So they've got, granted, they still can be taken out of class if they need to, but I've just made it I built in a time window for those students on IEPs. And then what I do is I go into the one that's for IEP students only, and I'll do the edit quiz thing. And now I'll add the recordings in for only these questions. So only these 7 in my Chapter 2 exam will be read to them. Now, the reading will be seen by the other students too, and you can just say, hey, some of them are read to you. If you want it, make sure you're wearing headphones, and some of them aren't. And that way, you've really super differentiated this for both sets. As soon as you do it even more than that, I've got 504 students as well, so you could have a regular version, a 504 version, and an IEP version. And the other thing is that I will say I always build the regular exam first, make sure that's what I want all my students to take, and then I go and I cut down the questions for the other students. If you've got ExamView database or any test database in your class and you want me to help you get those imported into your classroom, all you have to do is ask. It only took me a few minutes to get all of these imported for Mr. Wendell. So now he does not have to do any paper tests anymore, and he can use screen readers, he can use voice, he can add more images in, automatically randomizes because I click that shuffle button right here. Oh, and I should point out one other thing. In edit settings, one of the things down here is there's another shuffle someplace. Is it right here? I don't know where the other one was that I'm thinking of. Anyway, it's already set up right for Mr. Wendell's class to do a test right now, and I'm going to delete that and send this on to him.